Batista is one of the main villains of choujinx, a story by Tokyo Ghoul's Sue Ishida. I love this character. I love their purpose. I love their influence. I love their impact. I love their journey, the experience that they give you as a reader. They're super fun to engage with. They're super mysterious. They're super complicated. And they're someone that you can really attach yourself to. Sue Ishida is a master of creating very lovable characters that you can relate to, but also ones that you can be sympathetic towards, ones that you can understand the complicated natures, the ups and downs, the ins and outs of their deepest, darkest desires and how that conflicts with them as a character. In a broader sense, they are tiny, specular, barely even influential to the operations or machinations of how the world turns over. But that is usually what makes them so endearing. They feel like a character that is challenging the world, challenging the impossible. How far are they willing to go to do what needs to be done? How far are they willing to push themselves? How much are they willing to sacrifice? As a reader, when you have a character that feels that complicated, you tend to fall in love with them very rapidly. You can't take your eyes away from them. You want to figure out how they think, how they act, what would they do in certain situations, and overall how they operate as a being. You want to see them within their lowest of lows and highest of highs, and Batista as a character manages to accomplish all of those things perfectly. There's two parts to Batista's character that I really enjoy. One of them is his personal arc, his story as a character from start to where he finishes, and then the other is personal affliction. To simplify these two things, one of them is just a character arc from start to finish. The other is the deep, embedded character journey that is inherently personal. One that could be completed, might not be completed, might be good, might be evil, but it is only personal to them. And whether or not it influences other characters or the world or the story itself is obviously up to context. Batista is actually known as two people, the Nue Chimera and Batista Hoshi, and these can be read as two separate versions, eventually coming together to accomplish a singular goal. Batista has a natural choujin power. He is able to manipulate gravity, but he's not very good at it. However, as the Nue Chimera, he is able to steal and cannibalize on other choujin to take their abilities and attach it to his own body, hence the amount of disfiguration and scars along his figure. The Nue Chimera is pivotal to choujinx's operation. You see him as the main problem of choujinx's narrative. He's the one starting a lot of events, pulling in all of these different mysteries, putting up these different walls and deviating away from the expected. Because he is mysterious, he becomes complicated, and because he is complicated, he is entirely messy, sometimes being within the story for long periods of time and then dropping out randomly so you don't see him months on end. What this gives us as readers is an urge to seek, an urge to understand. You're really interested in the Chimera, you're really interested in Batista, you want to know more about him and what he's actually trying to accomplish, but Ishida is just giving you enough to hang on till the next time. It's like he's edging you and then denying any more access to the character that you're becoming so addicted to. What you do get to explore is the impact that the Nue Chimera has, the ramifications that he throws within the story that plague the main cast of characters and the overall structure of the narrative. Overall, it's complicated and you never really have a good understanding on what he's trying to do. Even when you start to connect the dots, when you start to see the bigger picture, it's not his personal affliction. It's only the role that he is playing to fuel that personal affliction before we actually see it. The Nue Chimera is a scientist. He's experimenting on humans to turn them into choujin, but to also understand the idea of immortality within choujin, even resurrection. While he is working underneath Zora, the main villain of choujinx, he's also doing things for himself. But we cannot disassociate the two. We don't know what's personal for him and what's aiding and abetting Zora as a character. He's trying to create beast choujin that Zora can eventually pass her power onto. And because Zora's power is so intense, every time she tries to pass it, she eventually kills them. So more choujin have to be created, more powerful versions of choujin have to be created, and the Nue Chimera is tasked with that. However, in comes his personal affliction. The reasoning, the why, the answers that you seek as a reader start to unravel. Batista was not originally evil. He was a normal person, someone that even worked in the facility of Yamato Mori with other choujin keepers, people that protected the peace within Yamato Mori. Alongside his brother, one of the strongest choujin keepers known as Sandik. They shared the ability of gravity. Batista was weak in his department of gravity powers, so he didn't really have much to offer as a peacekeeping choujin and instead just done his own thing. Batista, however, fell in love, and for the first time he felt useful. He felt like he belonged. He was willing to dive back into normalcy away from the choujin world to live a normal life with his partner. For a time, Batista was happy. He was in love. His partner was an open, beautiful woman that understood him mentally and emotionally and could really communicate with him on a deep level. They had a connection. However, something that Batista could not control was fate itself, and a prophecy would see a much different future for Batista and his wife. A vision would come in that would throw Batista's world upside down. His wife, now heavily pregnant, was about to give birth to a monstrosity, something that would shake the world. Batista did not believe this vision and done everything in his power to try and avoid it. However, it eventually happened. The child was taken away, his wife unfortunately died, and Batista fell into a deep depression. This was his past, and it's what led him to become the Nue Chimera, disfiguring his body and gaining all of these different choujin abilities by attaching it to himself and working underneath Zora in the hopes of trying to change fate itself, trying to rewrite it within his own personal affliction. But what does this actually mean? Zora is weakening and she wants to pass on her powers, which is called the Mark of the Beast, but it can only go to certain people. Batista actually takes it. After a massive raid with the main characters against Zora to try and take the Mark of the Beast away from her and to keep it under control, Batista steps in and takes it for himself. And this is where you find out what he's trying to do. The Mark of the Beast is powerful because you take all of Zora's power, someone that is considered the strongest being on this earth, into your own body. And if you can't handle it, you will die. If you can handle it, you will become a completely different being, one out of this realm and possibilities endless. Batista wants to go back in time, but not just to relive that horror. He wants to go back in time and rewrite it entirely, reshaping the world, the past, the future, all within his vision to save the love of his life. And he's willing to sacrifice the world, himself, everybody around him for this very moment. What you should understand about Nue Chimera and Batista is that he actually makes a deal. After his wife passed away, in that dark, depressive period, he is approached by a being known as Nue, and this being basically thrives off chaos and misery, and they attach themselves as like a parasite host type of thing to the person and are the reason that Batista is able to take other choujin powers. In exchange, the Nue is a being that becomes more and more sentient, more powerful, and eventually takes control. When Batista becomes this all-powerful being, he does rewrite the world, and our characters are trapped in the version that he recreated. A world where his wife is alive, where she is happy, where she actually gives birth, the prophecy isn't real, and they're able to live a normal, happy life. The problem is that this isn't real. While you are rewriting the past and changing the world entirely in its internals, it's played on a loop. It is a false memory being manipulated by this power. Batista is no longer in control. He has relinquished the body that the Nue has given him, so they have taken control and are wreaking havoc on the real world, trying to rewrite everything within their favor so they can take control, all while Batista spends his time internally with the love of his life. There is an endpoint to this, but I do not want to tell you. All I will say is that it is beautiful, it is heartbreaking, incredibly self-reflective. Batista is inherently, wholeheartedly a desperate man plagued by trauma and love and the desperation to change something that cannot be changed. because of that very thing, you can admire him, you can understand his struggle, his conviction, his unwillingness to move away from this idea because his love is so pure and strong that was disgustingly ripped away from him. Even if it was just for a fraction of a moment to witness the love of his life, his child, to be within that moment happily and healthily with no outside influence, it was undoubtedly worth it. I think past this, the real beauty about his character and how he thinks towards the love of his life is that deep down he understands he needs to let her go. That things have gone way too far and that this perfect life that he has rewrote is not actually real. There is a level of acceptance that Batista has to go through, and when you see this for the first time, you cannot take your eyes off of him. That through all the stuff he's been through, all the things that he has done, that acceptance of his fate, his lover's fate, his daughter's fate, is the most powerful step that he ever took.